Good afternoon, and welcome to this meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission. We're glad you're joining us today. Just a few quick reminders of ground rules. If you are addressing the commission, please come up to the microphone and share your name and address for the record. Please limit your comments to 5 minutes. And please avoid we reserve the right to limit your ability to comment if it's for any repetitious comments that are made. Please, if you are here with a group of people, we ask that you appoint a spokesperson to come up and represent the issues that you're bringing before the commission. Please also remember to address the commission directly, not the applicant. And finally, just remember that we're here to have a process that is respectful of the commission, of you as the public, and of our great city. So without further ado, I think we're ready to receive the minutes from the July 28, 2022 meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I move to receive the minutes.
Commissioner Clare has moved that we receive the minutes from the July 28, 2022 meeting. Commissioner Powers has seconded it. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes unanimously. And we are now ready for continuance requests. And we'll start with uncontested continuance requests.
We have two uncontested continuances today. It's item 12, SPUD 1423, request deferral to September 22nd, and item 13, SP 557, defer indefinitely.
Excellent. Is there anyone who wanted to be heard on either of those items, SPUD 1423 or SP 557? Seeing none, I think we're ready for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the uncontested continuances as read.
Commissioner Clare has moved to approve the uncontested continuance requests as read. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes. We're now in line for new continuance requests.
We have one new continuance request. That's item 9, PUD 1904, request a deferral to August 25.
Is there anyone wishing to be heard on PUD 1904? Seeing none, I think we're ready for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, move to approve the new continuance as read.
It has been moved that we approve the new continuance request for item 9. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. The motion passes. We do not have any items for the consent docket, so we are
Mr. Chair, I apologize. I do have another item to add to the new requests.
Excellent.
Item 4, we would ask to defer that to 2 weeks to the 25th. In talking with Commissioner Powers, there were some neighbors that indicated a desire to find more out about the project, so we're happy to do that. So we submitted a letter, but it was about 20 minutes ago. So we had asked item 4 be moved to 2 weeks to the 25th.
Excellent. Is there anyone wishing to be heard on item 4, SPUD 1436? Seeing none, I think we're ready for a motion to continue SPUD 1436 to the August 25th meeting. It has been so moved by Commissioner Noble and seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes. Now we are ready for items requiring a separate vote. Let's begin with item 1, SPUD 1438.
Okay, first item for public hearing, SPUD 1438. It's an application by Richard and Pamela Thomas to rezone 1135 North Portland from the R1 district to SPUD 1438.
Is there an applicant present?
Yes, sir. Mark Long with SRB. We are representing Richard and Pamela Thomas.
And could we also have your address for the record, please?
And the applicant is here as well.
Excellent. And your address for the record?
100 Northeast 5th Street, Oklahoma City.
Thank you. Please tell us about your project. You have 5 minutes.
As you can see in the application, this is essentially a zoning request change that will be compatible with a future 2017 bond issue sidewalk improvement. The 2017 bond issue sidewalk improvement, as you can see from the exhibit map, will effectively eliminate the street parking and the driveway access as it is existing right now. This project, in working with the city staff, we came up with an alternative to be compatible with the design of the bond project, and then to allow for the parking to be relocated to the backside, and then reconstructing the driveways so that this can meet an existing business's purpose. The existing applicant has been an owner of this property for over 30 years. It is a furniture repair shop. It will remain that as part of this process. So we're requesting this zoning change.
Excellent, thank you. This is in Ward 3. Commissioner Fraley, would you like to start our discussion off?
Yes, in reviewing the PUD, it's straightforward. There were not any technical evaluations listed on the SPUD, so if no one is here to speak on that item, I recommend approval.
Sounds great. Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on item 1, SPUD 1438? Any questions or comments from commissioners?
Mr. Chairman, I'm curious about where dumpster placement will be. The zoning request itself is seemingly just routine. This is a property that has been used commercially for a long time. I was astonished to find that it is zoned R1, except that exists all over the closed-in part of Oklahoma City, of course. But do you know where you'll place the dumpsters on site?
And it does have the 50 feet minimum separation from the residential use, but
The dumpsters, once this all will happen, that dumpster will be located in the parking lot area, and that will be behind the site screening. And there is existing site-proof screening on the west side and the south side to the residential area.
Okay. It's the problem with dumpsters is, I should say not so much, but that's not true. We take for granted the screening, but it's the noise that is difficult. If you can meet the 50-foot separation, I'm okay with that. It's a tight site.
I even thought about the dump truck getting back there to it would be an issue, but
It'll have to be fairly close to the building, and so that's okay with me. I mean, just to have a straight shot to pick up, so. Okay, thank you. I do have one other question, I guess, not so much about the application, but about this letter from ACOG.
yeah, we discussed that in the pre-meeting. JJ, do you want to shed some light on that?
They just recently started responding to our development reviews, and so we're going to make a place for them in the staff report, and you won't see their letter again.
Then I asked, what do we do if they're mad?
We've been asking them for their input all along, and they're just now responding. Is that it? Okay.
So, but you'll see a section in the staff report for them moving forward.
Thank you. Is it just for the commercial development?
No, they get a review for
I don't
each
think
one.
I don't think every staff report has a letter,
No,
but
they may not have responded to all of them.
okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions from commissioners or comments? I think we're ready, Commissioner Fraley.
I recommend approval of SPUD 1438.
Commissioner Fraley moves that we recommend approval of SPUD 1438 to City Council. And it has been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes. We're now ready for item 2. Good luck with your project, by the way. We're ready for item 2.
Item 2 is SPUD 1426, application to rezone 2644 Northwest 57th Street from R1 to SPUD 1426.
Is the applicant present?
Yes, sir. Mark Zitzow with Johnson & Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue. Before you today is a request to rezone a property. It's currently, thank you, one house that we're seeking to demo. The lot is actually an oversized traditional single-family lot. So today, we could demolish the home and put back 2 structures. So this application seeks to be able to add a third to it. I think when we talk about this area in the core, these applications are fairly common nowadays. If you were to go to immediately south of this, what you're going to see is Northwest Expressway. just a few blocks. And on Northwest Expressway, there's a new BRT route planned. And so I think some density in this area is likely to come forth. Several years back, there was a SPUD on 55th that allowed those 3 lots to kind of be built at the southwest corner of 55th and Miller. So our client recently constructed a project on 56th Street that took 1 lot and turned it into 2 homes. And during that process, they got connected with the heirs and ultimately the owners of this property. And they got to talking, and they ultimately worked out an agreement to purchase. So the folks that own the property today knew that the house would be proposed to be demoed, and this type of project would come back. So in terms of TEs, we are in agreement with TE1. We do not agree to TE2, but we would like to add 3 TEs that we think will help mitigate the elimination of TE2. So the proposed TE3 would be all homes shall have front doors that face the street. TE4 will be there shall be no rooftop decks or patios. And TE5, all homes will be constructed with pitched roofs. With that, we'd be happy to answer any questions, but we'd ask for your approval.
The front door faces the street, but it doesn't specify that they have to face 57th or Miller, just that it has to be.
Correct. So one home that is the hard corner of Miller and 57th, the homes haven't been designed yet, so ultimately we don't know
Which way
which
you want.
direction it will face, but the front door will face the street.
Okay. Great. This is this is Ward 2.
I'm sorry.
And I'll warn you, Commissioner Powers, that we do have 1 protester signed up to speak.
Okay. So there were a couple of other things. I don't know whether we need to deal with them by TEs, although that would be fine with me. There was some suggestion that the applicant might be okay with a 30-foot building height instead of the 20 that staff is suggesting.
Staff was suggesting 20. Currently, our one's 35, so I think we'd be open to 30 if the commission was more comfortable, but not with 20.
I think 30 would be a great idea. Also, we discussed the removal of the existing metal building.
Yes. So we have resubmitted the SPUD, and that change was already included in it. So the metal building will have to be demolished prior to any certificate of occupancy being granted on a new structure.
You know, I will just say that I'm not a huge fan of demolition of existing residential housing stock that doesn't have any, you know, engineering or you know, dilapidation issues. The removal, and that's why I raised it, of the metal building is kind of a trade-off there for me. Also, having looked at what this developer actually builds, it does very much, I mean, you know, anything that's more than 1 story is going to look a little bigger than a 1-story ranch spread out all over the place. But it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb. It does really kind of look like it belongs there, even though it's more modern, you know, it's got a pitched roof and so on. So those are the issues that we discussed and that the applicant agreed to here. I would like to hear from the protestant.
That sounds good. Unless there's any questions for the applicant before we hear from the protester. Excellent. Then Mr. Tom Weiss. Mr. Weiss, please give us your name and address for the record, and you have 5
I'm
minutes to
Tom
address the
Weiss,
commission.
W-E-I-S-S. I live at 2632 Northwest 57, which is the first house to the east of the subject development. I have a few questions on their procedures. One, are they going to be building beyond the present sight line?
No. I can answer that. No.
And 2,
I don't think so.
they've got some real drainage issues that I'm sure they're not even aware of. The street is actually higher than the yard. They're gonna have to redo the curbing and guttering before they build anything in there. They've owned the property for well over a year and they haven't surveyed it yet. I'm just wondering, are they actually gonna do anything? And on their construction, we've got an issue. 57th is about the only street that runs through from May to Villa. Comes right out at the grade school. It's kind of a raceway. There's a four-way stop sign right there at that corner. It's a suggestion. Nobody uses it. But they've got some issues coming in front of them I'm not sure they're aware of. Parking for construction crews is going to be kind of iffy because it's going to block a lot of traffic. What I don't understand, they have 3 lots there going east to west. Why didn't they just break the 3 lots as they were originally platted and just replat the whole thing and go on rather than rezoning it? It would have been exactly the same result.
Well, we can certainly pose those questions to the developer. Anything else, Mr. Weiss?
Well, are they going to build out beyond the present building lines? If so, it'll pretty well destroy any of the sight lines in the area. So there are just some standard construction problems and issues that most people have.
Excellent. Anything else for us? Anything else?
Well, I'm sure there is, but not right now.
Well, for now. Any questions for
Thank
Mr.
you.
Weiss? All right, let's give Mr. Zidzow an opportunity to answer some of those questions.
I'll do the best I can. So our setback, we don't have a survey yet. I was talking with Ms. Welch right before. So right now we're measuring the setback off an aerial. And so it looked like it measures 15. I think staff measured 18. We would agree that once we have a survey that the front of our homes have to line up with theirs. So the SPUD says 15. We think we're right within that. The intent is to maintain that line.
So can we get that in the form of a TE?
Yes.
Okay.
And then construction traffic, I mean, we'll be happy to share our contact information. We'll work with them through construction. It's a corner lot, and it is a large property. They're not going to build all 3 homes at one time. So there will be room on site. I think the intent and the reason why we worked with Commissioner Powers on maintaining the metal building until the CO is issued on the final home is so that some of those materials can actually be stored indoors. And so they're not just going to have materials stacked all over the property. And then I'd have to go back and look at the plat to see if it was 3 lots originally. The type of home that they build, the width of it, this type of layout is more conducive to that than 3 narrower lots at the street frontage. I think that was everything. Did I miss
Anything else, Mr. Weiss, on that?
That's pretty well
Excellent.
answers it.
And it sounds like, Mark, if you have some language on the setback, just to confirm to Mr. Weiss's point that we will honor that. would be
Sure,
good.
if we can add what would be TE6 that says the front facade of any proposed new structure shall be in line with the home to the east. We'll get the survey and we'll work out what that is, but it's likely going to be somewhere between 15 and 18 feet.
Okay.
Does that get too specific with just the home to the east?
East, yeah.
Because it needs to be on Miller Street. I would just say shall align with existing homes on either side,
On Miller or on 57?
Miller or Northwest 57th.
Sure.
Well, one thing you need to look at, this southernmost house, that corner is low, and you're gonna have some real construction issues there for the drainage, because it backs right up to the alleyway.
We will certainly study that prior to going in for any permits.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Weiss.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? Anyone else wanting to be heard on this item? Please come to the microphone so we can address the question.
The question was, are these gonna be multi-story units or single-story units?
So the units haven't been designed yet. The product that they put on 56th Street, one was 1 story and I believe the other one was 1.5. That is their typical, but we would be allowed to do 2-story under the current SPUD.
It just kind of destroys the view to the west if you build 2-story houses there. And there are no more two-story houses in the area, except for the one they built a block away.
And so I believe that this request, this SPUD, limits the building height to 30 feet as opposed to the standard 35 feet that's allowed in any residential zone property, which would include your existing property if it's zoned R1.
That's correct. We do have a reduced height now in the SPUD from what would be permitted today.
And it will have a pitched roof.
Pardon?
And it will have a pitched roof.
Pitch, that's fine. Can't land any helicopters on it, huh?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Anything else from the commission? If not, why don't we have a final reading of our recommended TEs, Mark, and then I think we'd be ready to have a motion.
Okay. So TE1, we agree to. TE2, we're amending to 2-story and 30 feet. TE3, all homes shall have front doors that face the street. TE4, there shall be no rooftop decks or patios. TE5, homes shall be constructed with pitched roofs. And TE6, homes along Northwest 57th Street shall be constructed in line with the other homes to the east.
Excellent.
If you're wondering, Mark, it was 3 lots on the original plat. Looks like 3 little skinny lots.
Yeah.
This looks better than that for sure.
Right. Oops. Unfortunately, they would not meet the
Lost my screen.
minimum
Yeah.
6,000
Yeah,
square foot.
right.
I'll make a motion to approve with the TEs as read.
Yep, probably. The motion before the body is to recommend approval to City Council of SPUD 1426. I believe there's a second, but my computer screen has gone out. So,
Okay, now it's
Totally
behaving
tripped out
itself,
this
I think.
maybe I'm back? Okay, I'm back. Okay, and it's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now in line for item 3, SPUD 1435.
Item 3 is SPUD 1435. It's an application by Mike Combs to rezone 13500 Piedmont Road from PUD 1256 to SPUD 1435.
Hello, my name is Steve Landes with Landes Engineering, 903 East 35th Street, Shawnee, Oklahoma.
Welcome, you have 5 minutes.
Like I said, this is a SPUD. It's a replacement of an original PUD that was done. Really, the first time it was looked at was just purely self-storages. Instead, Mr. Mike Combs or Senator Combs wants to create a Track A, which is actually a office space, basically, at the very front. And then we have a gated entrance into a kind of a higher-end duplex facility that actually runs down towards what would be Memorial. Because Memorial's not open, we created a T intersection at the very end for fire ingress and egress. And we've set it up to where if Memorial ever does get opened up, we would have the option to either open it up and tie it in that way with a gate or possibly even reverse it if we wanted to do something like that. We do have a gas line or petroleum line out along Piedmont Road. So we've actually created a 30-foot or 40-foot reserve A buffer zone, which will be designed as a landscape or a green belt space to try to noise reduction and kind of keep it attractive along that side. One of the other options we've tried to ask for is while it is the Autumn Oak Road is considered a private street, would like to look at a roll curb instead of a conventional 6-inch curb. Other than that, I would entertain any questions or any comments.
Thank you. And this is Ward 1, Commissioner Clare. Would you like to lead off our discussion?
Yeah, I didn't have any discussions with the applicant ahead of time. Are you just trying to, you're not connecting to the street to the north, and it doesn't look like it's an improved street, but there's right-of-way there. Just any reason for that?
Well, just really at this time, that is not all the way through. I will tell you, we've done some work on and off Piedmont Road, and we've recently kind of gotten to a point, there has recently been some limitations on sanitary sewer up in that area that has actually, we worked with some of the other developers in the area, and we've got that resolved recently with Crystal. So what are the developers, during some of our conversations with the, I can't think of the gentleman's name, but the city council person in Ward 1, we spoke with him, and they may, if he opens up an internal development up in that area, try to look at building that road through there. I think one of the holdups on that memorial section is there's, at one time there was a bridge, but we don't know if it was a bridge for the city to replace it or what would happen. And I think that's one of the constraints, approximately a half mile east of this location, to open up memorial through there. Of course, that's out of my scope of services at this time, and that was just some information I caught. So knowing that that was possible in the, make in the future, that's when we looked at that idea of a three-point T intersection. So in case that did open up and Mr. Combs wanted to actually put a second gate over there to make that optional either way, we could actually gate that side and pass through at that point.
And are you in agreement with the technical evaluations?
Yes, I'm not sure. I hadn't seen them actually, but.
Okay, I'll just state those for you. So approval of the application is subject to the following technical evaluations. 1, the setback from Piedmont Road and Tract 1, Tract A, shall be 25 feet. And Exhibit B shall be updated to reflect tract numbers and base districts consistent with the master design statement.
Yes, I think we actually already took care of some of those things, but it was at the last minute, so yes, sir, no problem whatsoever.
I don't have anything further. If there's anyone here to speak on it, I'd like to hear from them.
Let's see. Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on SPUD 1435? Any questions or comments from commissioners? I think we're ready, Commissioner Clare.
Okay. I'll make a motion to recommend approval to City Council for SPUD 1435.
Commissioner Clare has moved that we recommend approval of SPUD 1435 to City Council. It's been seconded by Commissioner Privet. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes. Good luck
Thank
with
you.
your project. We're now on item 5, SPUD 1437.
Item 5 is SPUD 1437, application by the Grove Retail Center to rezone 18101 North May Avenue from PUD 111 to SPUD 1437.
Good afternoon, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive, here on behalf of the applicant. The SPUD before you would allow for a brewery to be located here. This is an area along May Avenue that is very densely populated, lots of development, commercial and office going on. And the PUD that exists, the PUD 1111, did not allow the uses that would be needed for a brewery at the time, 2005. There weren't many breweries that were, opening up. Now we have obviously craft beer everywhere, breweries everywhere, and so we needed just to tweak the ability to have that. So that is the only purpose of the SPUD, that both TEs we agree to. Be happy to answer any questions.
Excellent. This is in Ward 8. Commissioner Noble, would you like to start off our discussion?
Thanks. Is there anyone here?
Is there anyone here wishing to be heard on SPUD 1437?
I thought the land application was right for this. The development in the area fits. I agree with the case.
Yeah, there were a couple of us who discussed the site layout, but ultimately thought you guys got it right.
We tried.
Any other questions or comments from commissioners? I think we're ready.
I'd like to put a motion forward to approve PUD 1111.
The motion before the body is to recommend approval of SPUD 1437 to City Council. It looks like it's been, okay, now we're ready. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available.
I'm a yes, it's not showing.
And Commissioner Hinkle votes yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are now ready for item 6, C-7463.
Item 6, C-7463, final plat of Sun Valley Estates, Phase 1, located south of I-240 and west of Sunny Lane Road, and a variance to Section 528B3 of the subdivision regulations.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzau with Johnson and Associates. This is a property you've seen multiple times. It's around the Oklahoma City ball fields. This is a project that is in compliance with the zoning and with the preliminary plat. We're in agreement with all the TEs except for TE3. We talked with the Utilities Department earlier today, and it's our understanding that they are comfortable with that being struck. With that, we'd ask for your approval.
Thank you.
Dustin Sears, Utility Department. I just want the commissioners to know that, to confirm Mark's statement that we did discuss this, and I'm okay with striking TE3.
All right.
Thank you. This is Ward 4, Commissioner Privet.
Yep. Yeah, like Mark said, we've seen this numerous times. What's the only difference here, Mark? Is it the median thing, or?
Right, so we have a median that's extending, I think, further than typical.
Yeah, 'cause
I think they're
it's
hoping
off the
for
road.
a heavily landscaped entry. If you recall, there is industrial and commercial development that's approved on the north side of the drive and retail on the south side. So they're really hoping for a bit of a grander entry to make your way back into the neighborhood.
Yep, okay. I assume no one signed up to speak for this being.
Let's make sure, there's no one signed up, but is there anyone here wanting to be heard on C-7463?
Unless there's some ball players that are upset for the neighborhood coming in, I'll recommend approval to City Council.
I think we need to vote on the variance first.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Get the number. Make a motion to approve variance section 5.1.2.8.B.3 of the subdivision regulations.
I think 5.2.8.B.3, just to make sure.
Did I not say that?
You said 5.1.
Oh, 5.2, yes.
The motion before the body is to approve the variance section 5.2.8.B.3 of the subdivision regulations. It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. And that motion passes.
I'll make a motion to approve case number C-7463.
And the motion from Commissioner Privet is to approve C-7463.
Striking TE3.
Striking TE3. Good catch.
Thank you, JJ.
It's been seconded by Commissioner Powers. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Noble, have you voted? There we go. And the motion passes. We are now ready for item 7.
Item 7, C-7464, preliminary plat of preserve located south of 104th and west of Choctaw Road, and a variance to Section 531D5 of the subdivision regulations.
Good afternoon. Once again, David Box, 522 Colcord Drive. Mark Grubbs is the civil engineer, also here with us. This is a preliminary plat for a tract of land at 104th and Choctaw. It went through the Planning Commission some time ago, and we set out to revise the plat many times while working with the council person. Only after we got to a plat that the council person believed was compatible with the area did we move forward, and that's what you have here today. So there are a handful of TEs, all of which we agree to, except we need the variance on TE2, and then TE7 needs to be amended to read except lots 4, 5, and 6 in block 1. The reason being, you will see that the first lots off of going west from Choctaw, those are large lots that will take access directly off of 104th. Each of those lots are approximately 3 acres in size and don't take access to the internal street network. I talked to staff. JJ indicated that was what the intent was anyways. If you read earlier in the staff report, it does make mention that 3 of the lots will take access directly from 104th Street. So I just, out of an abundance of caution, would like to add at the end of TE7, except lots 4, 5, and 6 in block 1. So as it relates to the TE, it relates to connectivity to the west and to the south. The reason I put these slides together is to kind of walk you through the existing conditions. And so the first page shows obviously an aerial of the site. And you will see that as we go to the second page, it's going to focus in on Southeast 111th Street, which is the only place conceivably you could have a stub. But the reason that we don't think it's appropriate, as you turn on, finally go to page 4, first and foremost, the neighborhood to the west, those are private streets. And not only are they private streets, but they are private streets that are not built to city standards. And there is a gate that exists between our site and where the street begins, if you can call it a street. And there is a lot of heavy equipment that is parked there. So the condition of the street is not compatible with what we are producing. Again, we're going to be producing a city street, so we'll have to meet all regulations that exist, and this is just simply incompatible. It is not dissimilar to a similar case we had in far northwest Oklahoma City recently, where you had more of a kind of rural street that was falling apart. This one, the difference being these are private streets to our west, whereas we are a public street neighborhood. And finally, to the south, that's a manufacturing facility. If you drive through there, there is a very large fence that lines Choctaw Road. The site is operating as some form of manufacturing and sales facility, so there's no real hope to connect there to the south either. So based upon those reasons, we think that the variance is appropriate and would ask for your approval of both the variance and the application.
Thank you. This is in Ward 4, Commissioner Privet,
Yeah, it's like a record for me.
and we do have two people signed up to speak.
Okay. Yeah, as far as my concerns, they were mainly with the connection. I think I can get on board without the west, but I'd kind of like something on the south, just in case, that turned into a neighborhood someday. And also want to hear from protesters.
Any other thoughts or comments on that connection south, or do we want to just go ahead and hear from our friends in the audience?
Let's hear from the audience.
All right, the first person signed up to speak, I have Mr. Jack Nays. And I apologize if I did not pronounce that name correctly. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Randall Ward.
Thank you. Randall Ward, 12624 Steve Drive, Oklahoma City.
Thank you, Mr. Ward. You have 5 minutes to address the commission.
Thank you. This is the most confusing thing. Has this even been to council?
No, comes here first.
Comes
Well,
here for
I don't
the
know
plat?
about the zoning.
The
but
zoning went
plat-
to council?
The plat would come here. I don't know if there was any rezoning that was needed for this property. I don't know the history.
Yeah, so it went through Planning Commission, was recommended approval by Planning Commission, and it's still waiting to go to City Council. The request of the council person was that we arrive at a plat and a layout that he was comfortable with based upon the fact that it was not a PUD. And so we set out to design the plat, modify lot sizes, move things around before we would go forward at the City Council level with the rezoning.
But then you would not be able to enact the plat, right, without the
It's
underlying
contingent
zoning.
upon, of course, City
Contingent on
Council
the zone.
approving the rezoning application.
Does that answer your question?
Well, that's one of, if I had to go back and look at the meeting, because I don't live directly close to this, but I am a concerned citizen for the neighborhood because of you're drilling 100 and some wells in an area that is saturated with wells that, and it's not compatible. I mean, you can say that zoning's compatible. Those are 1 acre lots. That's 100 and, I think it said 107 lots. Compared to the section to the east, that's twice as many. And when I went back and watched the meeting, there was so much confusion in that meeting. I know most of you weren't here. I think you were here, Mr. Pennington, I'm sorry, but I watched it twice, to be honest, trying to figure out what you were talking about with the LUDAs and this and that. But what I took, my main concern is environmental. And if you look back at that meeting, the discussion was like the upland forests, 77% of it. The rest of it is basically drainage. There's not going to be anything left. You can't build a 1 acre lot and preserve anything. I mean, just the nature of the beast is that you've got all those streets. If you look at the shapes of some of those lots, I'm not sure you can put a septic system in there because it's not just the 1 acre. You've got to be within so many feet of like your building and everyone now has an accessory building. They have all these other things. Anyway, I don't know how much time I have left, but anyway, my concern is you're basically going to clear cut 160 acres, basically, much of which has already been done. It's going to be taken off, and then that also recharges our aquifers. And that's all going to be gone. Any water that comes off those houses is going to be drained away somewhere else. You know, it's going to be required to. And so my concern is, like I said, why are we drilling 100 and something wells? And if that does come up to the south, there'll be 107 more. And I did a little research real quickly, but we don't even know how many wells are there. If you go to my street and go to the Water Resources Board, we have 16 houses basically off my street. There are 3 wells on that street. And one of them is a geothermal. It's not a water well. It's somebody has an air conditioner. And I talked to the water board. I know some people there and talked to them. They didn't even start registering wells till the 80s. And they will tell you that their numbers aren't any good before the year 2000. So we've got to do something to stop drilling wells. And if you look at what's going on with the surface water, the lakes are dropping. We're taking water out of Canton right now. And I'm just concerned about when you start cramming that. And you can tell, you look at that drawing, those are crammed. I'm sorry, that's the only word for it, is crammed. And then I would also want one of you to ask them, what's the preserve? What are you preserving? You're not preserving the land, you're not preserving the trees, you're not preserving the water. You're not preserving the air, because that's going to be 100-something generators out there. Because if you live out there with us, you've got to have a generator because you got your septic and your well. So anyway, that's my concerns. And like I said, I will probably go to the council meeting and express the same thing. But
Yes,
I
I would
appreciate it.
encourage you to, because the tree preservation question, I think a number of those issues that you mentioned, like the lot sizes, density, those are important things to address at the council meeting as well, which would certainly impact the ability for them to enact the plat as drawn right now. My understanding is that the septic systems are allowed on lots that are at least a ½ acre, according to the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality.
So you can do aerobic if you have public water on ½ acre. These are all an acre or greater.
Gotcha.
But that's not the only requirement. The septic has to be so many feet from a building, so many feet from a property line, so many feet from someone else's well. And I'm pretty sure some of those lots can't do that, but maybe they can, I don't know. But and then my other concern is y'all continually ignore Plan OKC. That's a comprehensive plan. So anyway, thank you.
In terms of the septic, we will have to permit these and get them licensed through DEQ. So all DEQ regulations will have to be met before anything can come online. So briefly, as it relates to the TE on the variance, so what we can provide on the south is the reserve and easement. And JJ, you'll have to help me with the provision of the subregs that allows that. But what we'd ask to do is reserve the easement for a connection, but it's our belief that there won't be a connection ever. But if there was, the easement is at least there to do so. So we'd ask to go that route, but then get the variance as it relates to the west.
Gotcha.
Can you do that in that common area maybe?
Yeah, what we'll do is when the final plat comes through, it'll just show an area
Okay,
reserved for
access
right-of-way.
Okay, I'm all right with that. Can you speak to the water wells?
Yeah, I mean, there will be wells drilled in the same manner as the wells are drilled around us. It is worth noting, if you look at the zoning map, the neighborhood to our west is zoned RA. The neighborhood to the south and east, across from the manufacturing facility, zoned RA. That is the district that we seek at the council level. The density we propose actually is less dense than what you'd expect with RA. If you look at the lot sizes, we do have many 1 acre lots, but we also have lots that trend up all the way to 3 acres. So that's certainly appropriate for water wells, and whatever the Oklahoma Water Resources Board requires us to do is what we'll do. And I don't know how the name, the preserve, was derived.
Yeah, I didn't, wasn't that a TE to change it to common area? Or was that another one I was thinking of?
I don't think so.
Any other questions, comments from commissioners?
Not with this one.
I don't think we have any. Mr. Fox, you want to review the amendments to TEs before we vote?
Yeah, so TE7, I would just ask to add the words "except lots 4, 5, and 6 in Block 1." And then we seek the variance to the west. JJ, do we need to add specific language to have the right-of-way reserved to the south rather than provide the street stub?
I think we should say that if that's the option you want to use.
Okay.
So when it comes back, we'll have the right of way.
So perhaps we just add a TE8.
Hey, strike 2, right?
And, well, I guess we're going to vote on a variance to 2, right?
I think it's TE4.
4, excuse me. Commissioner Privet, you ready? On the motion
Yeah, I
to
think
approve
so.
the variance.
Let's vote on number 4, variance per section 5.3.1.D.5. Recommend approval.
Motion for the body
To the west.
to the west.
To the west, or, yeah, to the west, sorry, not to the south. We're doing a different one for that.
And we're striking the language "and the south" and just keeping that will be a street stub, that a street stub is required to the west. Okay,
No, striking
it's
the
not
west,
required,
adding the
excuse me.
south, yeah. Well, we're gonna do the right-of-way thing on the south.
excellent. So the motion before the body is to approve the variance, section 5.3.1.D.5 of the subdivision regulations. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Govine voted. And the motion passes. I think we're ready to vote on the final plat.
Okay, and vote to approve the plat, striking TE2, adding to TE7, lots 3, 4, 5, and 6 to be accepted. And
Block 1.
Of Block 1.
what? Block 9?
1.
Block 1, sorry. Okay, I see.
And then
And then adding TE8, which was, I didn't bring my
reserve the
pen.
easement for the connection.
Oh, reserve the easement for the connection on the south of the neighborhood.
Excellent. The motion before the body is to approve C-7464, the preliminary plat of the preserve. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes when available. And that has passed.
Thank you.
We are in line for item 8.
Item 8 is C-7465. It's the final plat of Glen Eagles, located west of South Cemetery Road and north of Southwest 29th, and a variance to section 628A of the subdivision regulations.
Good afternoon, Jeremy Bean with Grubbs Consulting, 1800 South Sarah Road. This is final plat for Eagles Glen. It's been prepared in conformance with the preliminary plat. We do agree to TEs 1, 3, and 4, and would like to get the variance listed in number 2. We need the variance based on the addition of the 5 acres to the north that's shown as the SPUD 1339. With that additional land, we did gain a few additional lots. And due to the unique shape of this property, it was difficult to achieve the 2 access points. But we did provide a stub to the north that we can have a future connection point to once that develops north of us. So based on that, we would ask for your approval of the final plat and variance under TE2.
Excellent, thank you. This is in Ward 3. Commissioner Fraley, would you like to begin our discussion?
Yes, so you agreed to TE3, which is the cul-de-sac or the temporary turnaround
That's correct.
to the
yes.
north.
Yes.
But you're requesting a variance to complete that access point at this time.
We would provide the cul-de-sac, and, you know, it would be like a temporary turnaround. And should it ever develop to the north, we could remove the cul-de-sac at that time. And then it would just serve as a street connection point.
Okay.
And then that would provide the two connections.
Would that make it so those two lots at the north would either be developed last or wouldn't be developed until?
With them being the 1 acre in size, the cul-de-sac would still fit, and we could still serve those lots with the cul-de-sac in place. We would probably provide, you know, like a temporary easement to cover the cul-de-sac until the future development was there, which we could remove the easement at that time.
Okay. I don't have any more questions.
Thank you. Any questions from commissioners?
How many lots total? That 30,
33.
33, so
Yes.
3 over the, yeah, okay.
Any other questions from commissioners, comments? Anyone from the audience wishing to be heard on this item? C7465. I think we're ready, Commissioner Fraley.
I make a motion to approve a variance to section 5.2.8.a of the subdivision regulations.
The motion is to approve the variance to section 5.2.8.a of the subdivision regulations. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes when available.
Thank you.
And the motion passes. And I think we're ready for the final motion.
I would like to make a motion to recommend approval of item C7465.
And Commissioner Fraley's moved to approve C7465. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion has passed. We're now in line for item 10.
Item 10 is PUD 1905, application by Consul Properties and Thousand Oaks Farms to rezone 7101 South Indian Meridian from AA to PUD 1905.
Thank you. Is there an applicant present?
Hello, my name is Steve Ladies with Landy's Engineering, 903 East 35th Street, Shawnee, Oklahoma, representing the client on this one.
Thank you.
As you can see, it's a rather large, and actually I have to commend Sarah here for working with us on trying to figure out what we were doing. The property is currently about 90.15 acres, and and of course, you're probably pretty familiar with the idea that it is actually a grow facility. One of the things they wanted, which was the primary goal, was to create one small location behind the house, which would actually be adjusted to be I-1 for processing. Felt instead of taking the material, they could dry the material, do everything there, but instead of then transporting it someplace else, it's probably a little safer and a better location, do it right there on the property. Of course, they can't sell or anything else at that. And then with regard to processing, your knowledge is as good as mine. I don't even know exactly what all that means. But in the process of doing so, he actually brought up the fact that he would like to build somewhere around 12, 13 houses, mostly for the employees that would work out there. So when we first looked at it, the first idea was looking at the comprehensive plan and changing it from a low density to a medium density, because the parcel directly to the west of it is currently medium density. We started looking at that. Sarah and I all looked at it and said, no, that's probably not a good idea, and it wouldn't be approved, and the Planning Commission and councils probably wouldn't like that anyway. But at the same time, we realized this property is quite heavily encumbered by floodplain and flooding events and locations. So we felt the better way of doing this would be to actually look along Indian Meridian Road, either create a little bit of a clustering type of a house system, and then try to allocate a minimum of 5 acres of upland forest preserve per house, or something to that effect, and actually preserve as much as the woodlands that we can without causing a negative impact. Currently, under the 90.15 acres, we could put, basically 5 times that of houses on that property. So we're actually trying to reduce that approach in the first place, while at the same time trying to preserve the upland forest areas. The other thing, of course, can't develop in that flood zone anyway, so might as well restrict that and put that into an area that corresponds. I'm hoping in the PUD, the way we wrote it, it properly expressed all that to everybody, but that's realistically the goals of what we're looking for. And any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. This is Ward 4. Commissioner Privet, would you like to begin our discussion?
Yeah, the existing use, what's the existing use of that building in the middle? Is that going to stay, or?
There's currently like a residence being used more of an office space for
Okay.
the grow facility.
Is that going to stay there, or you're going to take that out?
That's really where a part of the processing will be going on.
Right, okay.
The only thing they looked at on that processing, that's why the 0.4 acres for that bitumized is in that location, because in case they need to do a metal building and have anything that could have been, and I don't know about this, but combustible or anything, they could be put directly behind that location and take care of that more of approach on the processing if needed.
Okay. JJ, what is agricultural processing? I mean, what could they,
It's light industrial.
just, okay. Well, that's on track 1. Okay, that's all I have.
Please.
Are we coordinating with whoever it is at the state that regulates these kind of uses with respect to signage? I can't remember exactly at the moment what the context was, but I mean, you know me, somebody tells me they're not going to have signs, I'm happy. But it was some sort of marijuana-related use. I'm not entirely sure I remember just what.
Probably.
And the person made the comment that they were required to have signage. And so do we know anything about that? Or are we at least in touch with them to know? Because, I mean, like I said, I'm happy, no signage, great, but.
We have not been.
Okay.
I don't know if licensing in development services has, but we have not at the zoning end.
Nobody's come back to us and said, oh my gosh, we said no signage, but now we need it.
No.
Okay.
Is it building signage, or?
I'm honestly not sure I remember what the specifics were at all. I
think
just,
it's
I just thought at the time, oh, that's odd.
Yeah, the grow, I mean, they have to have something on their building.
They'd have to have something on the building, is that what you
Yeah.
said, Commissioner Privet?
Yeah, just saying what it is, or they're hoping it
But not a different sign, like on the street, on Indian Meridian or anything like that?
that I know of, no.
Okay.
But
Any other questions, comments from commissioners? We do have a couple people signed up to speak on this item. The first is David Yocum. And again, I apologize if I did not pronounce your name correctly.
My name is David Yocum. I reside at 7126 McNarney Avenue on Tinker Air Force Base. Currently renting there, and we are building a home on the second lot down from the top. Across the right side, you see those long skinny lots. Those are 12-acre lots. And right there, where that spot's at, almost just right to the right there, we're building a house. Hopefully we'll close in about 5 weeks. And that address is 6700 Indian Meridian Road. And that's why I'm here today, to speak with you folks. And I appreciate you giving us some time here. I'm not opposed. Actually, my son owns the top lot, and we know the folks on the next lot, and the next lot also has, so there's homes being built there, and they're, just so you know, they're custom homes that are being built on those lots that you see, those 6 there. We're not opposed to this PUD, but the master design statement leaves a lot of vagueness as to what they really plan to do with this, and that's what I'm here to address. The first concern is Indian Meridian Road. When you turn south on 59th Street, that road is horrible. It's narrow. There's not even a line that's painted down the center of it. So 2 cars, sometimes you have to pull over to allow 1 car. It's potholed, et cetera. If you're going to change this zoning to RA2, you're obviously going to have a heck of a lot more traffic in there. So this road has to be upgraded if you're going to allow that type of zoning to go into that area. It can't really handle the traffic that's there now, to be honest, but if you're going to approve an increase in that, I would hope that you would improve that road. It was mentioned that there's there's RA2 around that area, which is true, but they're all accessed off of Choctaw. And Choctaw, they created a beautiful new road. It's 4 lanes, sidewalks, et cetera. So they have that access on there. But this one does not. And they specifically talk about no sidewalks required and that sort of stuff. But as you increase this zoning in there and more people, then I think you should address the infrastructure at this time and require that infrastructure to go in there before you allow this to go in. The same issue about the I-1 special packaging. What type of trucks will that require? What type of use on that road, again, will go up, will increase with the packaging and processing and that sort of question. It doesn't discuss that part in this master plan. It also doesn't address the number of employees that are there now and the number of employees that they expect will, they're going to increase to when they increase this special packaging. And I'm assuming that they're probably going to increase the growing since they're going to be able to package and process this product. It's silent as to that. They talk about these homes that they want to address on the front end, the RA2, they have track 1 and track 2. And specifically in this master plan, under their concept is that for operators, these homes are going to be for the operators on the land. Well, what does that mean? Is this going to be seasonal housing for those that are just coming to work? I don't know that because they don't really say that. So without knowing how many employees that are there now, are these going to be permanent employees, or is this like company housing for somebody to come work Monday through Friday? Or are these going to be really families that are moving into these single-family homes? Are these going to be owned by the property, and so they're providing it to their employees? Or are they going to be open for sale for other folks to purchase? Because these homes in this area are, as these lots are sold and built out, these are nice custom homes that are being built in the area. And the concern is, what are these homes going to, what is their concept for these homes? They only talk about single-family homes, and operators are going to live in that. What does that really mean? And that's a concern here. Also, that on the top 2, if you'll see on the designation, there's 2 sections where they're going to rezone RA2. There's track 1 across the top, and then there's the bottom part, which is track 2. That's 7.2 acres across the top. You're going to see that light line that cuts through that. That's a major gas underground pipeline that cuts across there. The map legend has a spot for the gas pipeline, but it's not actually reflected on the map. So that's a concern to me, and would be a concern for this special processing. And if they're going to build single-family homes up there, they've got this major gas pipeline, and there's setbacks across, it's like 30 feet wide, and how close you can build to it. That's not addressed either in this. The other issue that we wonder about is when you do the processing and packaging of this product, Is there any consideration to any increase in crime when you start having that type of product available for somebody to come and steal? Not against it, but are there any studies? Have there been any studies, or are there any studies in other projects like this where the crime has gone up or down? If you just go a mile north, Choctaw has the major middle school, is right there on Indian Meridians. So you just got a major middle school right up in that area. So these are concerns that are just not addressed in this package, and those of us living in the area would like to know a lot more, and I think the commissioners would probably like to know a lot more about what this concept is. It's not just a zoning change, but it will change a lot of things in this generalized area. So I appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Yocum.
You bet.
I'm gonna, between Sarah and JJ, maybe let's address, and you can have a seat, Mr. Yocum, but thank you. Can we address the issue with the clustering with the housing? Can we just go ahead and address that issue even before we hear from our other neighbor? Because that was a very specific question about the number of homes, where they'd be located, all of that.
Sarah Welch, Planning Department. So the way that the PUD is drafted is that along Indian Meridian, there could be up to 13 homes. We suggested that they maintain the AA frontage, which is 150 feet, so that would match the same frontage that would be for any home across the street. They just may not be as large. They may not be 5 acres. So they're asking for up to 13 lots, which could be either could go down Indian Meridian Road, or they could opt to put in a subdivision, so like one street that would serve multiple lots, but the number of lots could not exceed 13.
So that at least answers the question about the density question. Only up to 13 lots would be allowed.
In the PUD.
In the PUD. So within that area. Then there were a number of issues around the actual processing. Maybe we should hear from our other neighbor before we hear from you, Mr. Landis, about the other issues, but I did want to address that issue specifically. We have one more person signed up to speak, Mr. Bob Ferguson.
My name is Bob Ferguson. It's 15808 Haley Drive.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. You have 5 minutes.
I'm sorry?
You have 5 minutes to address the commission.
My property is located to the north there. I have 40 acres. And we've talked to several people, and all we knew was I was asking for a change in zoning. And my question was we wanted more details of what they was going to do other than rezone it. And the previous complainant mentioned that road. That's not an asphalt road, Indian Meridian. It's a gravel and oil. And in the summertime, I one time drove my tractor across it, and you just pulled up the oil and you could see the tracks. It's not equipped, I don't think, for a heavy traffic area without consideration to that road first. It's adequate for a rural area. So I hope I didn't waste my time. I hope they don't approve that without giving us time to consider what they're going to do. And because we didn't know other than just a rezone. That is a marijuana farm. They could put warehouses there, as far as we know. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Ferguson. And I will say, as far as the process is concerned, whether this commission recommends approval or denial of this application, it will still go before the City Council in 6 weeks. So the process is not done. You will still have an opportunity to advocate against or for this proposal should you choose, and that's the same for Mr. Yocum as well, that you should still continue to advocate for your position to the City Council. We've got more time to consider it.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wanting to be heard on this item? PUD 1905. Excellent. Mr. Landis, can we have you address some issues? And I do want to say this on the onset, and it's not one of my favorite things to say, but I think it's becoming the most common thing I have to say. Unfortunately, with the city of our substantial size, development precedes infrastructure, not the other way around. And I would imagine and hope and wish that we lived in a city where we built the infrastructure first, the roads, made sure they were perfect, made sure that they were able to accommodate traffic, but what happens is the exact opposite in this city. And that has been the common practice as we continue to pass more bonds, get more money to try to upgrade streets. The common practice is that development comes first and then the infrastructure comes as far as the street development. So not a desirable thing, but it is.
Yeah, we can get Amazon in there, that would, might build them some roads.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hinkle.
And this body has no, sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead.
This body has no way to recommend they fix the roads before they do anything. That's out of our purview completely.
That is true as well. Commissioner Powers?
To be fair, I'm not sure that Oklahoma City is in any way unique in this regard.
No, it's pretty common.
I don't think with, populations expanding as quickly as there are, that there are many, I would say, if any, municipalities that are out with their infrastructure in advance of development nowadays.
Other than that, I just want to express that as far as the size and the scope of the growth of the project, of course, under the AA, they can continue the greenhouse, or, actually, I do know that they plan on fully restricting to a greenhouse grow operation. So everything would stay within the greenhouse approach. Of course, they could do open grows up to the north of that opened area, but they've basically chose not to do that. So that aspect of it, either way, couldn't expand at all. Could expand either way we look at it. So really, the only thing that's a variation on that is primarily dealing with the aspect of the processing. And I think the primary processing is just packaging.
Having a facility myself, being part owners, it's not that bad of a use, honestly. We're required to vent everything and make sure that the fire chief comes and make sure that we're doing everything properly. And I don't have an issue with that one for sure.
And I think another issue.
And if it's restricted to the middle of the property,
yes,
much better as well.
That was another issue, is that that use is restricted to a tract that is inside, well insulated inside the property. Also, I hope it should be noted that any of the residential development has to be 150 feet from Indian Meridian as well.
Yes.
So,
The one thing that we did include in this is there is, no matter what, there is a greenbelt buffer or basically riparian zone between where the housing and the grow operation would operate.
any other questions or comments from commissioners?
I have a question on facade regulations, which is an issue that
We see this requirement regularly. What we don't typically see is drive it as a proprietary product, specifically listed as allowable. So I'm proposing for discussion that I think it would be appropriate to remove drive it as an allowable material for 70% of the facade, and that falls into the category of EFS, which is limited to 30% per this.
I have no problem with that at all, sir.
We're going to add a TE to strike drive it, assuming that is the commission's will. Any questions or comments on that?
Sounds like a Scott request. Good for it.
Should I say that?
Your predecessor. Ward 8. No, wait, not your predecessor, Don's predecessor.
So yes, I'm proposing that we add a TE3 to PUD 1905 that strikes drive it from the allowable materials for 70% of the facades. Everything else can remain the same.
Anybody else, any comments on that? Because I think that it sounds like Commissioner Privett's going to include that in his.
Yeah, I don't mind that, that's fine.
Okay. Yeah.
I don't see them using EFS on this anyway, so, yeah.
I think we're ready for a motion, unless there's further comment from commissioners.
And Steve, you're good with both the TEs, right?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
I'm sorry, I'm good with everything.
All right. I'll recommend approval of PUD 1905, allowing a max of only 30% EFS. Is that right? What, 30?
Striking the use of
Striking
drive
EFS
it.
totally? Okay, cool. That's fine. Yeah, striking EFS as a.
Striking drive it.
Striking drive it.
Yeah.
Even though I think they are synonymous, is my understanding. I had an education on that
changed
before the
the
meeting.
Well, no. Yeah, the effect of this is just to clear up, if you can do 70% drive it and 30% EFS, you can have 100% EFS.
Okay,
basically,
let's
is what I'm trying to
let's do
eliminate
what Dan said.
the confusion there of just remove drive it from the 70%
Yes.
allowed materials.
So moved.
All right, the motion before the body is to recommend
Including
approval of City
TEs 1
Council
and
of
2.
PUD 1905, including TEs 1 and 2, and adding TE 3 to eliminate drive it from the list of the 70% approved facade items mentioned in 9.1. It's been seconded by Commissioner Hinkle. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Powers? And it is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're now in line for item 11.
Item 11, case SPUD 1428, application by Harbor Homes to rezone 325 North Cemetery from PUD 1071 to SPUD 1428.
Good afternoon, Mark Zitzow with Johnson and Associates. This is an application for a 3.7 acre tract of land to permit 19 duplex lots. It's on the southwest corner of Northwest 3rd and North Cemetery Road. Currently, this is a PUD that allows for office, personal storage, and uses of that like. So we proposed a rezoning that would limit it to this duplex development. The Monday before the Planning Commission hearing, we received multiple protest letters, so we quickly worked to set up a neighborhood meeting. We did that virtually. Ultimately, I think their opinions and their feedback was the same that was expressed in the letters that were in your packet. Crime, property values, and traffic on Cemetery Road. So the traffic issue, we reached out to staff. We noticed that North Cemetery Road is a two-lane road and does handle a significant amount of traffic today. So in speaking with staff, there is a funded bond project to widen that road to 4 lanes to increase its capacity. And per the planning department, that project's expected to start no later than January of 2024. So not terribly far away from that. We still have final plat, construction, and infrastructure improvements before any homes are coming out of the ground. So I think timing of that will coincide nicely. Through that neighborhood meeting, we worked diligently, and I'd like to thank Commissioner Powers and Fraley on their work on that. We did agree to changes that are incorporated into your SPUD. One of the concerns that came out of the neighborhood meeting was Northwest 3rd is the entrance into their neighborhoods, and they wanted to ensure that it remained attractive and well landscaped. So we agreed to cedar fence with masonry columns placed every 40 feet. We agreed to street trees every 30 feet to help with that enhancement. Some of the other things that came out of it, you can see we have a 60-foot setback on our west side, so we do not have any lots that are going to back up to any adjacent homes. There's an existing drainage channel there that will be preserved, and so no backyards will abut our neighbors to the west. And then staff had requested a trail connection to allow connectivity between Northwest 3rd and anything that developed to our south. So that was incorporated into a SPUD. Ultimately, that led to no TEs, and it was found to be in conformance with the comprehensive plan. I don't know that there are any neighbors here to speak on it, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Sure. Well, this is in Ward 3. Commissioner Fraley, do you want to begin our discussion?
Yes, I'm surprised that nobody is here to speak on it after the neighborhood meeting. We listened to a lot of items from the neighborhood. I feel like the designer worked to accommodate some of those requests. But at the same time, we did discuss entry into this area in a few different locations. There was a concern of the entry being off of Cemetery, but there was also a concern, that more of a safety concern of the entry being off of Cemetery, and then more of a neighborhood concern of the entry being off of Third. So if looking at this design, this is the second design that I've seen. The first design came with the entry off of Third. Do any other commissioners want to speak on the entry or have recommendations on the entry of Cemetery versus Third?
I think it's much more conducive coming off a cemetery than Third, for sure.
It does, we've seen it both ways. The neighbors aren't happy with either way, but it does seem to me that two drives that close together on Cemetery is less desirable than one on Northwest Third. But I understand we've already seen it with the Third Street entrance, and that was an objection from the local residents. That's one of the concessions that made. So I don't really know what to say about that. Is it correct that there's still an option they're not committing to one or the other, or are we able to agree for sure which one it's going to be today?
Sure. So in the SPUD, the approach that we took was a little bit different because we were hearing concern about traffic on Cemetery versus entrance on Third. So in the SPUD, we wrote that we can take access from either and/or, but that would be determined at the platting stage. Ultimately, it's our client's opinion that they'll follow whatever the will of the commission is from an access standpoint, whether you prefer us to go to Third or you prefer us to go to Cemetery. We revised it based on the feedback we were hearing from the neighborhood, but in terms of preference of access, as long as we have it to the property, we're comfortable with where you all decide. I'll note that our access on Cemetery does meet the regulation. It's 200 feet apart. So we do meet it. We wouldn't seek a variance there. You can notice those lots on the north are just a little bit deeper, and that's what helped us achieve that 200-foot separation. But ultimately, the will of the commission on how you'd like us to approach that, we can put it in the SPUD today, or it could be reviewed at the plat, at preliminary plat.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Well, having seen several of these come before Traffic and Transportation Commission, I mean, it's only going to be a matter of time before somebody's going to request a stoplight at either one of these. If that's the case, it ought to be one stoplight at one consolidated intersection. I understand the neighbors' concern about additional traffic. However, I guess the way that I look at it, it's for, the equivalent of 500 feet of Northwest 3rd Street, and there's no homes that front on it. It's not going to affect anything. I kind of see it as we don't want to share our entrance. But the first time that somebody goes to beat traffic on a North Cemetery from Northwest 3rd, make a right turn, and somebody's turning out of this proposed entrance to make a left turn, we're introducing more conflict points, and I see safety as a bigger issue than residents not wanting to share an entry. So I would be for the access coming off of Northwest 3rd Street.
And in my discussions on this, let me say this initially. I always appreciate neighbors and applicants having great discussions about how to compromise and work together. And I appreciate the work that Mr. Zitzow and his team have done to try to do that and compromise. And so I've tried to lean as hard as I can into those compromises. However, I think that this is bad policy. I really do. I think to say that we have consistently, especially over the last few years, adhered to this idea of connectivity being a value. That there being a multitude of housing types being a value of this city. And so for us to try to segregate duplexes from other homes, it just seems inappropriate to me. I think having the connectivity to Third is important. I think it should be done, but I think I'm okay with waiting until the planning stage to have that discussion. In our initial discussion about this before the commission meeting, a number of us had those strong feelings, and my thought was, the compromise is important, but it's still up for the commission to decide our interpretation of following the comprehensive plan and the policies laid out by the city of Oklahoma City. And in my opinion, we wouldn't be following those policies by eliminating that access on 3rd. But I'm content to punt if the commission is.
With the widening of Cemetery, I feel like the safety issues probably can be addressed, although I agree with Commissioner Clare on that concern. But I absolutely believe that the connectivity and Plan OKC and neighborhood requirements, it should be off 3rd. I just didn't want to go back on what's been presented at a neighborhood meeting and everyone's gotten happy with, and that's probably why they're not here today.
Exactly.
That's a problem.
So it just seems wrong for us to then do the reverse when
Right.
they haven't had an opportunity to come here and tell us their rationale, although we've all read the numerous letters that we received. But
Oh, Mr. Chair, I think maybe it is the preliminary plat when we should address it, but is a best of both worlds not something we did recently where we didn't have it be automobile traffic, but we had it foot traffic or bicycle or whatever. It was like a paved connection to 3rd with, the posts where you can't drive cars, but you can walk dogs, you can walk, you can bicycle. So it makes it more connected. But because I am concerned about the traffic issue, people cutting through, trying to get around a backup to get on the Cemetery Road. If that's for the preliminary plat stage, maybe that's right. But
I mean, it's up for us to decide today. It's still within our purview to decide that today. But my understanding is there is a trail connectivity with the sidewalks through this property as well as the others.
That's correct. So the project, regardless of how it's designed, is going to have new sidewalks exist on 3rd, but there will be new sidewalks on Cemetery. In addition, what staff had requested was a 4-foot wide pathway that would likely go within that 60-foot setback easement along the channel or behind those lots. If commercial development was to happen to the south, it would give the other neighborhoods an opportunity to still connect. But if we had a street onto 3rd, there'd also be sidewalk down through, so.
I think also, if I understand what you're saying, the times that we have limited connectivity from vehicular down to pedestrian is normally when you're talking about bringing traffic, whether it's foot traffic or automobile traffic, from a residential area to a commercial or industrial area, not between two residential areas. That's pretty unusual, I think.
Or maybe if it was to go to some residential amenity, which I don't think is the case in this instance. That's the other time when I think I've seen us do that.
Did this plan go out to the neighborhood? I think it did, didn't it? Or
Yes,
no?
based on the discussions, it was resubmitted with this plan. I mean, if we were to move forward, we'd be happy to put the other plan back into the packet as well. Part of the reason it wasn't just to defer the discussion to plat to make it easier. Part of it was to make sure that we could meet site distance if the decision was off of Cemetery, to make sure that we can meet separation. All of this is being done off of preliminary data. We don't have final survey yet. So I guess I would ask that if we were going to move forward and it was going to be on Cemetery, we still have the or if it doesn't work out from an engineering perspective. In the reverse, if your will is 3rd only, we don't have a problem with that because we know we can meet the conditions to take access on 3rd.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hinkle.
Is there a way to stipulate a decorative entrance off of 3rd instead of just a street light and a green sign that said, put a brick wing wall up with flower beds and irrigation to where they don't see an ugly entrance?
Sure, there will be a decorative entrance. In addition, we also have already committed to trees on 30-foot centers and brick columns, so you're not going to see that kind of, we'll say big box store pre-purchased stockade fence that falls down in 2 years. They're doing a nicer entry, so we think that'll be able to be accommodated.
But that's in the existing language, right? To Commissioner Hinkle's
Yes,
point.
that's already in the SPUD.
Okay.
I'm a 3rd Street guy, just saying.
I'm also a 3rd Street guy, but again, I'm happy to defer this discussion.
So I want to just be really clear. I think what we're talking about here is the difference between there being access to one or the other as opposed to both. And so the question is, which will it be? To me, it does just make sense, although I'm perfectly willing to wait until Plat stage to deal with this, especially if there's more information to be had about how it would work. I mean, there's already a street there. Why wouldn't you use that? I mean,
Yeah.
you know,
A divided boulevard, too.
Yeah.
Quite nice street.
seems like kind of a
Designed
no-brainer.
perfectly for this connectivity.
This is not a case where I would be concerned about traffic going back through the neighborhood. An awful lot of what we heard at the neighborhood meeting had to do with just the whole concept of duplexes, and that alone was going to lower their property value, and that kind of thing. So I think that the concern about the placement of the access point is appropriate for us to make.
So I think now the question is, and I think there might be consensus on this, that we could we're content with the and/or language for now. Let's reevaluate at the Plat stage. But I do think for all the neighbors who may be watching us now, I think from what I'm seeing, looking at the heads shaking on the commission roundtable, it sounds like we're going to end up agreeing to a connection on 3rd. So I would encourage you, Mr. Zidzow, and maybe Commissioner Fraley, to make sure that the neighborhood's on notice of what the commission's likely to do, because I'd hate for them to not have appeared before us to make that point and be heard on the issue before we vote. But I think they should be given that notice before.
Especially if this is the plan that they have in their hands right now.
Yes.
Of, okay, we're going to change it to this, now it's going to be this, and we'll work together.
Because it seems like a bait and switch if we decided to add it
Yes,
now,
that's
and
what I
they're
feel
not
like,
here
too.
to say otherwise. Yeah. So if there's no further discussion, I think we're ready for a motion, Commissioner Fraley, to recommend approval at this point.
I make a motion to recommend approval of SPUD 1428.
Motion before the body is to recommend approval to City Council of SPUD 1428. It's been seconded by Commissioner Govine. Please cast your votes when available. And the motion passes. Thank you. I think we just created a bigger headache for you, but thank you. That concludes our agenda for for our separate items to be heard. Looks like there are no additional items. We're down to communication reports, Planning Commission committees. Any committee reports? No committee reports. Hearing from Planning Commission members, Commissioner Clare. Nothing from Commissioner Clare? Commissioner Powers? Commissioner Fraley? Commissioner Privet?
Can I move to create a new board?
You create a new board?
Yeah, arbitrarily, yeah. A home sharing board, just separate?
Oh, no, I think you got that well under control at the Board of Adjustment.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Is that all?
Yeah.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Not it.
Not it. Commissioner Govine? Nope. Commissioner Noble? Commissioner LaForge? All right. Planning Department?
No, sir.
No reports from the Planning Department. Municipal Counselor's Office?
Sarah has one.
We'd love to hear from you, Sarah.
Hi, I just wanted to either tell or remind you that we're planning a study session before the next Planning Commission meeting, so August 25th. I do not normally send a calendar invite for that, but you will receive those materials in your packet. So you can make it. It's to discuss our capital improvements plan.
Excellent. And
That'll
what
be-
time?
Right now, it's not set yet, but I think about 11:15 is what I think it'll be.
Embark Conference Room?
I believe so.
Unfortunately, I will not be able to attend.
Okay.
I know those are riveting study sessions, but I'll be moving my daughter into college that week, so.
I won't be here either. I'm going to Milwaukee with the chamber, so.
Okay. I do not need a quorum for a study session, but obviously the more the merrier, and especially if you've never attended a study session where we discuss our capital improvements plan, we have 4 different department heads that will come and present their projects to you.
Sarah, while you're at the mic, could you address our favorite issue before this commission regarding easements and a future conversation on easements?
No. No, we're still under review trying to set up a meeting, so.
More on that soon. Great. Municipal Counselor's Office? citizens to be heard? Mr. Warrior? He's good. All right. I think we're ready for a motion to adjourn. It's been moved that we adjourn. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 All those opposed, nay. The motion passes. We are